You have been waiting for permission that was never going to come from outside. Welcome to Quantum Wealth Lab. Imposter syndrome is not a confidence problem. It is a sourcing problem. It is what happens when the authority you need to operate at a high level is being sought from external sources. From the credential that gets granted, the mentor who validates, the room that accepts you, the number in the account that finally says, "Yes, you are enough now, you may proceed." The sources are real. The validation they offer is real, but they are insufficient. Because external validation, no matter how consistent or genuine, cannot fill the internal gap that imposter syndrome creates, the gap between where you are operating and where your subconscious believes you have clearance to be. The clearance has to come from within, not as an act of arrogance, as an act of accuracy. Because the most honest assessment of your capacity, your experience, your intelligence, and your contribution is not the one that the room offers from the outside. It is the one that your subconscious generates when it has been given the correct information. The correct information is this: you were never required to earn your way into the rooms you are entering. You were never required to be more than you currently are before your instincts and your judgment and your leadership become legitimate. The requirement was invented by an educational system, a workplace culture, a family narrative, a set of social comparisons, and it was applied to you before you had the capacity to evaluate its accuracy. This session evaluates it and issues the slip. You have always belonged in the room. Not eventually, not after the next credential, not once the account reaches a specific number or the title changes or someone important enough finally says so. You belong in the room you are currently in, the one that feels slightly too large, slightly ahead of where your subconscious has given you clearance to be. Belonging is not a function of credentials. It is a function of showing up consistently with your full intelligence and attention and the genuine desire to contribute, which you have been doing all along. The imposter voice has been narrating a parallel story, but the actual record shows someone who has been doing the work, making the decisions, producing the results. That record is the evidence that you belong, not the credential, the record. And the record is already substantial. You have navigated complex situations that the imposter voice said you were not equipped for, and navigated them well enough that you are still in the room, still being invited back, still being trusted with increasingly significant decisions and increasingly significant amounts. Because the people in the room with you are looking at the record, not the narration. You are the only one hearing the narration, and the narration is not accurate. The accurate statement is, "I have always belonged here. My presence is legitimate. My contribution is real. My authority, the authority to make decisions, to lead, to be trusted with what I am trusted with, is earned, installed, and valid. I have always belonged in the room." Feel what leadership becomes when the permission is internal. Not the performance of leadership, the actual experience of it. The difference between leading from a place of internal authority and leading while simultaneously managing the imposter voice is not subtle. It is the difference between full bandwidth and partial bandwidth, between decisions made from clarity and decisions made while also defending against the self-doubt that fires in the background. When the permission is internal, when the subconscious has been updated with the genuine understanding that you are authorized to lead, to decide, to contribute at the level at which you are actually operating, the bandwidth becomes available. The creative resource that was consumed by the imposter management returns to the work itself. Feel that version of leadership. The meeting where your full attention is on the problem rather than on monitoring the room's assessment of you. The decision made with the full force of your intelligence rather than the hedged, qualified version that the imposter voice produces. The opportunity claimed cleanly without the reflexive qualification that reduces it to something you can defend. That leadership is not arrogance. It is competence operating at its actual capacity rather than the diminished capacity that imposter syndrome produces. It is you at your actual size, which, if you examine the evidence honestly, is significantly larger than the imposter voice has been reporting. Feel the full size, let it be accurate. Sign the permission slip. This is the action block, and the action is simple, specific, and more powerful than it appears. You are going to grant yourself the permission that you have been waiting for from an external source, not as a performance, as a genuine, deliberate, subconscious-level authorization. Here is the format. Fill in the specific version that is true for your situation. I, your name as you know yourself, grant myself full permission to the specific thing the imposter voice has been blocking, to lead this team, to charge these rates, to claim this level of expertise, to step into this role, to take this opportunity. Not when I am more ready, not when the credential arrives. Now, with the capacity I currently have, which is sufficient. I am authorized. The authorization does not require external confirmation. It is self-issued and it is final. Sign it, in your mind or on paper, put your name to it. Claim it as a document with the full authority of your adult self behind it. The imposter voice will note that this is not how permission works, that it has to come from somewhere official. The imposter voice is not correct. Authority at the level of your own life and your own financial decisions is exactly where self-authorization is the appropriate mechanism. You just issued the slip. It is valid. It is in effect. For the doubt that kept you careful. Imposter syndrome, for all the bandwidth it consumes, is not entirely without function. The doubt that fires when you enter a high-stakes environment contains useful information. Pay attention. This matters. Do not phone it in. The standard here is high and you should bring your best. The problem is not the doubt. It is the interpretation. When the subconscious interprets the doubt signal as you do not belong here rather than this matters and you should bring your best, it generates a different and significantly less useful response. But beneath the misinterpretation, the original signal had integrity. The care it was encoding, the desire to be genuinely competent, genuinely contributory, genuinely worthy of the trust being extended, that is something to honor. The imposter syndrome was, in its own way, a high standard masquerading as inadequacy. Thank the doubt for the care embedded in it, for keeping you from complacency, for making sure you prepared rather than assuming, for the particular quality of attention and effort it produced, even when the attention was partly consumed by managing the doubt itself. And then separate the care from the misinterpretation. Keep the care, keep the high standard, the desire for genuine competence, the commitment to earning the trust extended to you. Release the misinterpretation that the standard means you are not yet adequate. You are adequate. The doubt was wrong about that. Permission was never theirs to give. This is the core of what this session is installing, not as a consolation, but as a fact. The authority to lead your financial life, to claim the level of expertise you have actually developed, to charge what your contribution is actually worth, to take the opportunities that are actually available to you. That authority was never housed in the people whose validation you have been seeking. Mentors can confirm what is already true. Credentials can document what you have already learned. Rooms can reflect what you have already brought, but they cannot create the authority. They can only acknowledge what the subconscious has already established. And the subconscious establishes authority not through external validation, but through internal update, exactly the kind of update this session is running. The permission slip is issued from within because that is where it was always supposed to originate. You have been a fully authorized contributor, leader, and decision-maker for longer than the imposter voice has been willing to acknowledge. The people trusting you with significant decisions have already issued their assessment. They keep trusting you. The evidence has been accumulating. The only outstanding item was the internal slip, the one that your subconscious needed in order to operate without the background narration of inadequacy. It is issued now. You are fully authorized. The authority is permanent, self-generated, and does not require renewal from any external source. Step into the version of you who leads without apology. Not aggressively. Not with the performance of confidence that imposter syndrome produces when it is trying to compensate for the background doubt. Simply, without apology. With the clean, uncomplicated authority of someone who knows they belong in the room and does not spend bandwidth confirming it. In this version, the high-stakes meeting is simply a meeting. The significant financial decision is simply a decision, evaluated with full intelligence, made with full confidence, implemented without the second guessing that imposter syndrome injects into the space between the decision and the action. The rates are what they are, stated clearly and without the apologetic framing that invites negotiation and signals uncertainty. The opportunity is claimed fully without the hedged language that says, "I am not quite sure I deserve this, so I am presenting it as though I might give it back if challenged." The leadership is exercised with the settled authority of someone who is, in fact, authorized, because they have issued the authorization and installed it at the level of the subconscious, where it operates without interference. This version of you is not a different person. It is you, with the imposter management process decommissioned and the bandwidth returned to the work. 14 minutes of subconscious update, and the full version of your leadership becomes available. It is already available. You just needed the slip. Integrate the permission into your operating system. The permission slip is not a one-time event that produces a permanent change without follow-through. It is the initiating document, the first formal statement of an internal authority that will need to be reinforced through practice until it becomes the default rather than the deliberate choice. Every time the imposter voice fires, in the meeting, before the negotiation, when the opportunity presents itself and the background doubt says not quite yet, you now have a response. Not an argument with the doubt, a return to the authorization. I have issued the permission slip. I am fully authorized. I proceed from here. That response, practiced consistently, gradually replaces the imposter management process with something simpler and more efficient, the settled internal knowledge that the permission is in place. What this session has installed is the beginning of that knowledge. The first time the subconscious has formally received the authorization it was waiting for. The knowledge will deepen with each session, each moment of catching the imposter voice and returning to the slip, each high-stakes environment navigated from internal rather than external authority. The imposter syndrome does not vanish, but it loses its operational power, its ability to consume bandwidth, to qualify decisions, to reduce the effective size of what you are willing to claim. It becomes, over time, a recognizable voice that you note and move past rather than a directive you comply with. You are authorized, the slip is signed, lead from here. Until next time, keep expanding. Before you leave this session, take one specific action that requires the permission you just issued. Not a large action, a real one. The rate increase conversation you have been avoiding, the opportunity application you have been hedging. The service offering framed at its full value rather than the discounted version that feels safer. The decision made with full authority rather than the one that asks for approval it does not need. One action, from the authorized version of you, before the imposter voice has time to reassert and qualify. If you are not sure which action to take, ask yourself, what would I do right now if the permission slip had just been issued by someone I trusted completely? And then do that thing, because it has been issued by you, and you are someone you should trust completely. And then come back to the comments when you have done it. The community question this week is, what is the one high-stakes action you have been waiting for permission to take, and what happens when you take it with full internal authorization? Your action this week may be the permission slip someone else needs to see modeled. Subscribe, share this with someone who has been waiting for the green light. Tell them the green light is self-issued. Until next time, keep expanding.